All right. Hey, everyone. How are we doing? Doing well? Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I don't have a ton of time. I've got about 25 minutes. My name is Christian Crowley. I'm one of the co-leads on the Alethio project within Consensus. We are a 20-person team, largely made up of data scientists like Dan Sui in the crowd, and developers. We are a blockchain data analytics and visualization platform focused currently on Ethereum mainnet, but we're looking to expand to side chains, and we currently support private deployments as well. So the conversation today is going to be focused on the current state of Ethereum, finding ways to use visualizations, analytics, and direct access to data to ensure a broad base of users can access what's happening on chain equitably. Our main objective beyond providing transparency and usable tools is combating information asymmetry on Ethereum. We believe information asymmetry is the antithesis of Web3, and the more we can bake in safeguards against that early on in development, the better the ecosystem will be. So I'm going to briefly talk through the current state of Ethereum, walk through some visual assets we've created over the past year to capture kind of the story to date, and how they've played a role in helping combat information asymmetry. The main focus of my conversation today will be on decentralized or open finance. It's an emerging space that's seeing real traction, enduring traction, and seeing real dollars. Over $300 million is locked up in decentralized finance protocols as of today. So the stakes are higher, and we have an opportunity here to create a platform that is truly open and accessible to a broader audience and allows that audience to realize the benefits of decentralized finance, namely access to financial products at much lower rates, much more quickly. And finally, I'd like to walk through the new Alethio platform. We're very excited about the launch. It was yesterday. We were able to combine some tools and talk through our data product as well. The goal really is to show how we're trying to emphasize usability, user experience, to create an onboard to not only Ethereum, but Ethereum use cases, decentralized finance being our first focus. If I have time at the end, I'd love to take questions. If not, we have a booth down front. We've got a great exhibit set up. Our sonification exhibit is pretty cool. I'd love to talk to you there as well. So this is a saying we've kind of had in our mantra from the beginning. The blockchain is a collective memory of its users. You have a public database that is theoretically accessible by everyone. You could spin up your own node, download the entire history of the network, and theoretically access this public data set. But given how difficult it is to access this information, we believe we live in a state of amnesia. Currently, it's challenging to access meaningful blockchain information in spite of the fact that it's publicly available. So we're trying to create tools, visual assets, data consumption products that allow for direct and actionable access, both for public mainnet, side chains, as well as enterprise. The transaction volume, this is what you're looking at here, just a quick visual. You saw a spike during the ICO hype, you saw a spike during the past year, but this is basically showing how we've kind of normalized the daily transactions at about 500,000, a little more per day. We saw over 390 million total transactions processed last year. But what we're seeing is a stable bottom. We're seeing a stabilization effect associated with on-chain activity. And I'm going to get into where a lot of that on-chain activity is happening in a moment, but we're seeing it broaden across use cases. We're seeing it broaden across the ecosystem. It's very exciting. It's growing in size, volume of transactions, but it's also growing in complexity of transactions. What you're looking at here is, to date, smart contract function calls by type over time. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, but essentially what it's showing is there's been a lot, and they've been growing across different protocols. You see there's some spikes here associated with CryptoKitties. You see some minting functions associated with decentralized finance. The main takeaway of this slide is that it's a rich, complex ecosystem that's evolving. And how do you decipher this evolution? How do you decipher this information? And that's been a big driving factor for why we exist. My first exposure to information asymmetry, and before I get there actually, this is just another visual of how rich and complex the ecosystem is. We built this visual to show and the contrast isn't that great. But it's just showing what we call the top hubs and authorities on Ethereum. And what that refers to is top hubs being the top accounts that receive the most Ether, relatively the most Ether, and authorities are those who sent the most Ether, for example. It's just showing across a number of exchanges, mining pools, how you have this evolving ecosystem. This is actually a dated visual, but it just shows different stakeholders in the space. So this is a visual you may have seen. It's an older one, but my first exposure to true information asymmetry on-chain was associated with token sales. Essentially, you saw a flurry of token sales in 2018. You saw a lot of money raised, but the net result was a cash grab for many of these companies. You had uninformed participants staking money or investing money on these platforms that had no real business plan. You saw a more informed, earlier adopting group taking advantage of a later adopting group. And you saw those at the end kind of holding the bag with useless tokens, failed promises. So we started creating ICO reports, visuals. What you're looking at here is all the participating accounts in a token sale in May 2017. The dots are accounts submitting bids. The blue lines are those bids, and the size of those lines are the size of the bids. Post-analytics, we identified things like proxy senders, bidding rings. So you have scenarios where teams were actually pooling money together to submit large-scale bids, insuring tokens. Nothing bad happened here necessarily, but it just shows that with this opacity, there is a propensity for gaming the system. There's a risk for an individual participant being taken advantage of, for example, if you have a massive bidding ring, for example. We did an analysis of the EOS token sale. I'm not going to go into this or into EOS at all right now, but basically, Danning and another one of our data scientists did a deep form, long story about the token sale and how they raised almost $4 billion over the course of the year. They were extracting money every 7 days and reinvesting it. It's an interesting read. Take a look. But it's a way to show and bring some illumination to certain token sales on chain. What can we learn from the past? Last piece on token sales. So post-launch, once the token sale ends, you have an ecosystem. And this is showing all the movements of the singular DTV token, now Breaker, following their sale. The sale event happened down here in the green, and all these dots are accounts that have ever held a singular token. And it's showing points of connection, hubs, exchanges, for example. Ideally, if decentralized exchanges had taken off when we thought they were going to take off, you'd see much more of a web. You'd see more peer-to-peer interaction. But we still have these central focal points that control a lot of the flow of these tokens. It's no secret token sales kind of fell out of favor, aren't as frequent nowadays. Fall of last year, late summer, we saw the emergence of decentralized or open finance, led by Maker, the DAI stablecoin, with the promise of opening up access to financial products to anyone, almost instantaneously at a fraction of the rates that banks offer. The initial product was a collateralized debt obligation or collateralized debt position, and essentially it allowed for people to extend loans based on holding Ether that they would lock up in stablecoins. I'm not going to get too deep into CDPs, but basically the reality is there's higher stakes nowadays because there is an enduring amount of Ether locked on chain. What you see here is a visual showing the accumulation of Ether locked in decentralized finance platforms over time. This is in our reporting tool, but you'll see we have the top, I think there's 7 right now. There's a few more that come out every day, but DeFi protocols. And across the top 7, you see Maker obviously here in the red is the preeminent player. That may change. They were kind of first to market, but we have over $350 million as of today locked in DeFi. And in terms of the global economy, it's small peanuts, but it's enduring, and we're seeing it grow. So there's more of an obligation on those who have been around for a while to provide some support for newer entrants to really make this a great tool. You apply for a loan at a bank, and oftentimes there is an inherent fee, a flat fee of $5,000 for the application or just to process it, regardless of the outcome. 30-day turnaround time. This promises fractional fees, instant turnaround time. That's the promise of decentralized finance, among other things. The reason why it's so important is because it's growing relative to ETH supply as well. So what we're seeing is, and I don't have the interactive graph here, but this is showing the relative amount of ETH locked in decentralized finance protocols against the growth of ETH volume. So you see relatively it's orders of magnitude higher compared to overall ETH growth. It's just showing how it's a space of interest, there's real dollars locked up, and there's tools being spun up around to support investing in this space. So what's so interesting for us, and we see this opportunity or risk of information asymmetry associated with decentralized finance. There's about 7 protocols that exist right now that have traction. The issue right now is that each of those smart contract protocols are architected very differently. And it's very difficult to see points of interaction, connectivity between Maker and Compound, for example, or Maker, Dharma, and Compound, for example. And the financial products that these protocols issue, on paper seem like different products. But in reality, we're seeing the creation of interlinked derivative products that are initiated in Maker. So for example, say you're looking to open a collateralized debt position on Maker, or want to take out a loan. You lock up amount of Ether on the Maker smart contract, and they extend you a corresponding amount of DAI based on a certain ratio. Users are doing this, and they're extending loans based on that position. Concurrently, users are taking that DAI, going to a competing smart contract protocol, locking up that DAI in exchange for Ether. So you have these, and it's happening in circular fashion. It's going to Dharma, it's going to other, they're providing liquidity in a Uniswap. So you have this interconnected nature of a series of seemingly disconnected smart contract protocols. So the risk is when you have derivative products that are increasingly detached from the underlying asset, here Ether, you have a point of risk, a structural risk to the entire system. And DeFi is so fascinating because it actually shows an enduring real use case for Ethereum. But if we allow it to collapse in this bubble or we fail to acknowledge this real risk, it could do real harm to the ecosystem. I mean, and from an analogy standpoint, think about it. Remember 2008, mortgage-backed securities. Mortgages were the underlying asset. Here, it's Ether, or it's the assumption that CDPs are going to remain the financial product of choice, for example. This isn't a doom and gloom scenario. It's just we should be acknowledging this connectivity and aiming to address it early on for it to endure for the long term. The other piece I want to just mention before I dive too deep into this and restart my laptop is a lot of the tools that are spinning up to allow access to decentralized finance products are baking in information asymmetry into their user interfaces. They're offering different access points for developers versus new users. From our standpoint, that is structural advantage for a certain subset of the user base. So how can you say this is open to all, providing this promise of reforming finance for all, when you have this structural inequity at the outset? So I want to just show a visual here real quick. I mentioned connectivity across protocols. So this is a visual showing, let's see if I can go full screen real quick. This is a visual showing not the top 4 decentralized finance protocols, but four of the top protocols. You have Maker here on the top right. You have Augur prediction markets. You have Compound, and then you have Uniswap. And these are individual accounts that participated in those protocols. So you're opening a CDP on Maker. You're providing liquidity in Uniswap. So right now, as of November of this past fall, this is showing the current state of the ecosystem largely. And these, so the colors here associated with each of the protocols represent accounts that are only participating in that one decentralized finance protocol. So here, these accounts have only interacted with Maker. These accounts have only provided liquidity for Uniswap. There was some interconnection between Compound and Maker to start. Here in the middle, the yellow shows accounts that are at least participating in 2 different DeFi protocols, but there's not much. Largely, you're participating in one DeFi protocol. But if you evolve that to the current state, you're seeing how it's evolving not only in size, but connectivity. You have a massive overlap of the user base between, especially Compound and Maker, but across the top 4. And it's not just 2 shared accounts, you have 3 and 4 accounts interacting with 4 different protocols. And while this isn't directly tied to a derivative product, it's showing the same accounts interacting with multiple protocols in a way that would suggest an interlinked or a chained product. So we're working on this. Danny and her team are working on going pretty deep and providing more visibility into how you can actually digest this and understand what risks are associated with derivative products. And she has a series coming out hopefully next week. So look out on Medium. It's a great post. But just to put some numbers behind this, we view this as a real risk. We think there currently doesn't exist a structural view of ecosystem that shows connectivity, that can actually highlight this risk, address it, and flag it for Compound, flag it for Maker, flag it for the participants. And these are just some numbers. You just saw the visuals, but this is just showing the growth rates. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Uniswap especially is really showing some substantial growth. Maker was kind of large from the beginning, but it's an evolving, enduring space. And right now we're just seeing the baseline layer. The applications that will be built on top of these protocols are going to be immense. And it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens. So it's important for us to bake in tools that allow for equitable access to financial products. So I'm going to look at how I'm on time. Okay, I got about 15 minutes or so. I want to save a few minutes at the end for questions and comments. But I want to just talk through the new Alethio platform and how we're actually using our data science roots, using our developer skill sets to build a platform that allows for an easier on-ramp for DeFi and for future protocols, future use cases, whether it's tokenized securities, tokenized real estate, layer 2 transactions. So I'm going to walk through kind of an overview right now of just what we provide. Essentially, the core of our tech is our data platform. We've established a deployable, agile data platform that ingests blockchain data. Right now, we're plugged into mainnet. We can plug into XDAI chain. We can plug into private Ethereum, Quorum, a couple others. The platform synthesizes that data and restructures it in real time into a format that is more consumable, more actionable, and the baseline for enrichment. We also are indexing the entire chain, so when you deploy it, you index the historical chain as well as update it in real time. We're offering access to that data pipeline directly via an API. For now, it's general Ethereum, but we're moving towards domain-specific APIs, looking at DeFi, looking at DEXs, looking at tokenized securities. But for the users, for non-developers, we're building in an integrated platform, Aleth.io. It integrates a series of tools, the foundation of which is a robust block explorer. We're also adding things like real-time account monitoring based on custom advanced rules for smart contract activity. Also the ability to run reports. So say you want to pull aggregated blockchain data sets based on custom queries. How do you rip that data very easily, make your own interactive graphs? What we realized though, early on, we built the Explorer first. It was interesting. We think it's really great product, but block explorers, it's no secret, they're based on the methodology for building an exploration tool for the Bitcoin protocol. Bitcoin is, by its very nature, a much more simple, but very valuable, but simple protocol. It involves exchanges of value via transactions. There's no smart contracts. So the Explorer interface necessarily was not optimized for Ethereum. So we really thought through how do you kind of optimize an interface. And we realized it's not about projections or profile views or account views. It's about capabilities. It's about combining passive monitoring in the background with the ability to really get customized and deep for a certain use case. So the API, I won't spend too much time on here. We're really excited because it provides a fantastic foundation for customization going forward. Right now, it provides true real-time access to enriched Ethereum data with real-time reorg handling, so there's no risk of ingesting information that may not be the final version of the mainnet. We solve the data fragmentation problem via our relational database. So it essentially allows you to very easily connect and create account histories across complex smart contract protocol interactions. Our goal is to simplify an evolving and complex ecosystem via this data feed. And finally, it's expressive and standards-based. So right now it's REST-based. We're looking to make it a WebSocket version. The goal is to make it as consumable for a broad base as possible. And for enterprise users, for sidechains, it's based on the same architecture that we deployed in mainnet. We would have to adjust the dynamic ontology that underlies it, but you can also provide access to your underlying data via an API as well. So the more interesting stuff, I think, is actually the platform. I'm going to go there right now. And I just have this one contract that I want to ensure I'm copying. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so this is the Aleth.io landing page. You'll see here we have a pretty clean. This is the mainnet version. We also have testnet support as well. But this is an ability to search the Ethereum platform for anything you want to look for. Smart contracts, accounts, transactions, tokens. We're working on a refined version of Elasticsearch that's pretty advanced and expressive. On the left here, you have a number of other tools that we are very proud of. So you have eStats 2.0. eStats.net is a foundational tool for the ecosystem. Our co-founder built it. We've created a modified version that just refines the UI a bit. It also is built on our pipeline, so it can reflect some more interesting visuals. It's also modular. So for private deployments, enterprise, you can customize the modules that are most relevant. Say it's a quorum-based network. Uncles are irrelevant, so focus more on node distribution, for example. It's plug and play. So we're very proud of eStats. We also have our API, so you can click this to kind of get more information. The API sign up directly. We have monitoring and reporting. I'll get into these in a moment. I think a use case is the best way to show how this is actually a useful tool. But to start, we're talking about through decentralized finance. So let's pull up the Maker Tub contract within the eStats interface. And I actually have it preloaded. So this is showing that smart contract holdings over time. So what you're looking at here is a number of things. And I'm actually going to just pull this down because the value is not in ETH. It's actually in wrapped Ether. But what you're looking at is that smart contract, and we're looking at token balance over the past 30 days. Overall holdings distribution is broken down by here. It's a way to explore. It's largely at its core, it's an explorer. But we're going to integrate tools to allow for advanced monitoring. Say you want to set a threshold for a given collateralization ratio for a CDP open, for example. There's a number of use cases that we can actually focus on there. So to start, so here, let's go to monitoring first. Monitoring is a way for you to set custom rule-based alerting, rules around any deployed smart contract or external account that matters to you or your business. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a smart contract monitor on Maker. And what it allows you to do is show, set behavior-based alerting associated with that given smart contract. So we realize that each smart contract on DeFi or otherwise is architected quite differently. And things you want to monitor for aren't as simple as call volume. So what we've done is we've been able to deconstruct a growing number of smart contracts and enable a customized means of tracking behavior. And you can set threshold-based alerts based on that behavior. Threshold or relative. And you can put, I'm just setting a random alert here, but essentially this is showing a threshold of call volume over time. And you have an email set, and then you can create this feed of living alerts. Right now it exists next to the Explorer. Soon it'll be part of a panel-like vision where your alerts are front and center. But I like to think about this as a means to not only monitor accounts on chain, whether it's my own address, whether it's a DeFi protocol, whether it's a top investment account that I follow, but also think of it as, for developers, a means to deploy smart contract security. You write a smart contract a certain way. You run a diligence audit on that smart contract. You have a sense of how that smart contract should behave post-deployment, so you write a custom wrapper using monitoring to watch that smart contract once it's deployed. And if there is a spike in call volume, an adjustment in internal variables, if there is a number of scenarios where it's behaving in a way that it shouldn't behave, you're alerted in real time. And you can adjust it correctly. For private chains, there's a kill option, so you would actually pause that smart contract until a human would come in and make that adjustment. You can also run similar monitors for external accounts as well. The next piece I want to talk through is reporting. So as we thought through a capability-based approach to this tool set, this deployable tool set, it kind of fell into two categories: the need for real-time data and the need for accessible historical data based on a custom use case or a custom query. So this is where reporting comes in. Up until recently, it was very difficult to pull a custom data set of historical blockchain data based on a use case, for example. So over the past year and a half, we've been collecting thousands of query requests for data requests among developers, among users, among businesses. And we've started to kind of categorize those and create initial, we call these query buckets, but DeFi is the most interesting one, that allow for you to pull the underlying data sets that exist on chain, historical, for example. So to start, everyone's seen the ETH locked in DeFi visual. We have it as well on on our DeFi reporting tool. But what reporting allows you to do is pull long-form data sets. So here, just so we understand, you set the date range for a given report. This one, it's very straightforward. It's just a date range. But you could also you could pull a report based on smart contract activity, account activity, and we'll send you an email with that CSV file, and you can update it in real time. You can plug it into Tableau. As an example, we've set our DeFi reports, and we plug them into our Alethio DeFi panel. It's a portal where we're showing advanced analytics for, I'm going to go into this in a moment, for the centralized finance platform. And what it showcases is deep, useful analytics, but an ability to spin up use case specific tools for teams that are trying to grow their user base. This is DeFi because it's what's happening on chain right now, but basically, you give us a sense of what you're trying to track on the network. We can spin up a very straightforward but advanced Tableau dashboard that you can offer to your users via our tool set. But DeFi is really cool. So we offer a couple panels here. We're looking at the entire ecosystem. I'll go there in a moment. We also have specific protocol-based analytics that are based on a robust deconstruction and analysis of those smart contracts. It's in Tableau now. We're going to evolve that soon to show how reporting can evolve from CSV and Excel to Tableau to an advanced UI. I have 2 minutes. So I would encourage everyone to check out this Tableau instance. Check out aleth.io. Check out ethstats.io. It allows you to play around with different ways to look at DeFi. These are the graphs I just showed. If you're interested, you can go to reports, pull the underlying data set, convert the data into a visual you want to create on your own. With that, I mean, we have some exciting stuff coming out very soon. So please, where's my slide on my thing? Please give us a follow on Twitter or reload it, whatever. We're very excited to be here this weekend. We're going to be at a booth the entire time. We're going to be showing off some pretty cool visuals around smart contract networks within DeFi. But we're also excited just to meet everyone. So please come see us. My name is Christian. Danny and Momo are here as well. Thank you.